Alright.
Nice.
So maybe before we begin, let us share a bit about why we did this project. So I think it was last year, right?
Yeah, we were planning to hold some sort of exhibition or just a collaborative project last year. But then the Ila was down with so many projects of her own. So we couldn't manage to execute that until this year. Then we found the open call from Art Outreach. We decided to just go for it. Yeah.
And then we got selected.
Yes, we got selected.
So I think what made us want to do this, I think I remember Jana approaching me and say, like she wanted to do something on stimming. The objects that is used for stimming, right? That was the start of it. And then wanted to actually share it in the space. So we were thinking about the different ways in which we could talk about this. And I felt that the best way is actually through our own experiences as caregivers, so that there's some kind of a closeness or intimate sharing to it that people might not encounter if they read probably on stimming online, for example, right? So to make it more accessible and also to make it more real in the everyday as well. Do you want to add on anything?
No, you basically cover everything. Yeah. So yeah, we actually just wanted to share with the audience the objects that they use and basically the most of the actions that they exhibit in a more interactive manner. Yeah, but we can't possibly bring Inaya and Muhammad as a person to the public. But what we can do is bring the items and photographs and all the video clips that we have collected all this while. So that's where the documentation comes in. Like for us as caregivers, we naturally just want to document. We spend time with them, and naturally we happen to document their lives through all these audio clips, video clips, and the items that we have collected throughout the years. So which makes a good substance for this whole project.
So another thing is that usually when I bring Inaya for therapy or medical checkup, then the neuro or the therapist would say, oh, you need to record videos of her doing these things so that we can see, right? So that also has become like a form of accumulation of footage because they can't be seeing everything in within that half an hour they see Inaya, for example. So by chance, it's also like footage of her doing things that she just learned or pick up and things like that. Yeah.
Did you ever think that all of this cumulative will one day be used as never?
No, actually, we never thought that it will be.
Sometimes you need to do things without having an end goal. Sometimes it might be very monotonous, but here you can see it came together, for a higher good.
So for those who just joined us, we just started. We just sharing a bit about why we did this exhibition. So just sit back and enjoy. Maybe I will like, before we head on to Aisyah and Rachel, maybe I would like for us to share a bit about Muhammad and Inaya. So they have a bit of background about them because they're not here also, right? So Inaya is actually my daughter. She's turning 5 in December, and she has a rare brain condition which is called the agenesis of the corpus callosum. So the corpus callosum is actually the middle part of the brain that connects the left and right brain together. And so because it's partially developed, a lot of the connections, that is what they call the crossing of the body. So things like talking, eating, walking takes a while for her to learn or to pick up. So the condition itself could be a consequence of autism, but she has not been diagnosed yet.
So the other subject is Muhammad. So Muhammad Tawaf is my brother. He just turned 22 last week. So he's an adult with autism now. He was diagnosed with autism spectrum disorder when he was 2 years plus. And yeah, he was, yeah, that's quite early. Then in addition to that, he also has intellectual delay. So these two go hand in hand. And he's now, over the years, he developed epilepsy. So like, from that epilepsy, he lost a lot of skills that he has learned from the early years. So now we are still trying to teach him the basics, like how to eat and how to toilet. Yeah.
When did he start getting epilepsy? How old was he?
I think it was in 2000. I really can't remember. He was in his teens, like early teens. Yeah. Was still in AWA school back then. Yeah.
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 So we're done with our intro. So I'm going to share a bit about the two amazing speakers that we have with us today. Aisyah is a consultant, educator, therapist, and advocate. She has been actively working with the Special Needs Committee since 2003. She is also a certified sports coach under Paralympic and Fundamental Multi-Sports. She is a full-time therapist educator with PlayStudio SG and focuses both on play and academics. Throughout her experiences, she incorporates play as the main domain in IEP, which is Individualized Education Programme. Maybe later you can share with us what that means as well.
Okay, I'll try.
Then we have Rachel. Rachel has spent years thinking about stimming in her research and also in her lived experience at home. Rachel is doing a Ph.D. in special education where she analyzes videos of non-speaking autistic children stimming and interacting with their family members. In her home in Singapore, stimming is ever present and part of her daily life. Rachel thinks of autism as simply a different way of being and celebrates stimming as a meaningful way to make sense of the world. Yeah. So Aisyah, we begin with you. So you can just share whatever you feel like regarding maybe a bit about PlayStudio, what is play for you, and all the other things that we shared yesterday. Please feel free.
Okay, sure. Thank you very much for the invite. Okay, I'm Aisyah. I'm a consultant with PlayStudio SG. Okay, the acronym for PlayStudio is actually Play, Learn, Autism, Youth. Then we provide shadow support, therapy support, and we look into underlying behavior intervention. Then we have dynamic holiday program, independent pre-vocational and job coaching, and also outdoor life and social skill. As for SG, it's Singapore based. Yeah. So we have run this for more than 10 years. I've been working with the special needs for about 16 years. So I was from AWA. Then I moved on to Singapore Disability Sports Council. Then from there, when I was with SDSC, I was in charge of the swimming contingent. Then eventually I tried to sell the idea of opening up to kids in a special school, but they focus more on those able-bodied who involved in the accident and become disabled. You see, so for those who are born disabled, they don't have as a top priority to be one of their athletes. So because my goal was to start from young as 5 years old. So how we can introduce sports to this younger generation and develop from there. So yeah, because I think there is a long phase. So not everybody will be patient to go through the stages, I think. So that's the reason why I quit and I set up my own, I start with Shadow Spot. Then from there I expand and we set up PlayStudio with a team of members.
What is Shadow Spot, Aisyah?
Shadow support in a sense like the kids attend mainstream school. So we are there to support the child in the classroom. Yeah, this is to actually we focus on the social skill, life skill, and also on the academic. So we are there to, why do parents send them to mainstream school? Is to get the child educated, you see. So if we only focus on the social skill, what happened to the academic? Okay, so we have to understand the parents send the child to a mainstream because they want the child to have academic support there. So we are there to support them on their academics. And usually because it's a class of 30 to 40 kids, and some teachers, they have to go through the topics very fast. So what we do is we help to break down the topics to make it simpler for the kids to understand, so they can progress together with their classmates.
I see.
Yeah.
Do you also help them with the adjusting into the school setting?
Of course, yeah. The transition is very crucial. That's why I say for parents who child is from K2 going to primary 1, please have a shadow spot for at least 6 months.
Is a shadow support.
Yeah. Because it's very important for them, because transition from K2 is only about 2-3 hours, maximum 4 hours, but in the mainstream is 6 hours. Okay, in kindergarten you have maybe only 10 to 12 kids in the class, but in P1 you have 30 to 40. You have more teachers, the classroom is bigger, the school environment is bigger, and you have to buy food during recess. So there's a lot of movement, there's a lot of adjustment where they need to adjust to the new environment. So if they can have a smooth transition, then they will be able to set in smoothly with the school and the classroom rules, everything. But if they don't have a smooth transition, that's where you say, why is this kid not listening? Why is this kid having behavior? So at times we should understand what we need to support them, because transition is very important for this kid.
Yesterday you mentioned to me about this idea of feeling safe as being a very important aspect, right?
Yes.
Would you like to share that a bit? Like what do you mean by, like when we talk about support, right? Like how do you ensure, firstly, like a child on the spectrum can feel safe? How does that look like? And how is that related to stimming? Like does stimming make them feel safe as well?
Okay, that's why I always tell my students, stimming, there's two. It can be helpful, it can be harmful. Okay, helpful means it can help them calm, but you have to really monitor the tendency of the stimming, because when it becomes a repetition and they get pretty high on stimming, that's where the helpful become harmful. So they can just move to their own world, all right, their comfort zone, and it's very difficult for us to pull them back. So when we work with them and we play with them, we really have to look, they need to stim. Why? They need to let off whatever is running on at the back of the mind, which we don't know what is running at the back of their mind. Are they anxious? Are they scared? Are they overwhelmed by the crowd, the environment, by the sound? Okay, that is something that we don't know what is running at the back of their mind. But from the stimming, we can monitor. So there's a little peak where we can, if you work closely with the child, you will be able to understand through their eyes and their body language. When the eyes is set to a comfort zone, you know that it's already there, and you say, okay, let's go back. So they will not proceed with their stimming. But if you don't stop, it'll pick very high. Okay, then they move to their own world. Then by then you want to pull them back. It's very challenging. Yeah.
Okay.
So for like you mentioned just now, how we know that they feel comfortable, they trust. We have to build that trust. You see, as you know, kids with autism, they will not give you the eye contact. But when they give you the eye contact, it means that maybe they understand you, or they need your help, or they are saying thank you. You see, there's many ways. So even when they took a glance at you, I say, okay, now when they took the glance, they are comfortable. That means perhaps that glance is to say thank you. I say, but if they took the glance and they start to jump or move, they know, okay, something is not right. So when you build the trust, you will be able to read your body language.
Okay.
So sometimes when I go out with my student, I say, okay, stop. I know you're going to run. Then he look at me like, hey, how you know I'm going to run? It's from the gesture, the body language. Before he even run, I say, no, you stop. I know you're going to run. So building the trust is very important. So once the child trusts you and you also trust the child, you always have to tell, I trust you, okay? You're responsible, I trust you. They will feel very comfortable. Okay, then they will try to follow your instructions. Yeah.
So it's a
So
mutual thing, right?
yes, it's a mutual understanding.
Just wondering, Aisyah, like now that because you spend so long being with children or teens who are non-speaking or non-verbal, does it also make you be able to sense other people's gestures outside of school?
Yeah, it become occupational hazard. And sometimes you'll be surprised that when I'm in the train, these kids with special needs, they can come and approach me.
Oh yeah,
I say,
Oh,
is that an aura? Like, wow, they can come to me of all the strangers. I say, okay, I think there's a label there. Like, I can help
yeah,
you.
yeah. Like that's true. I feel because
Yeah.
just a general background for those of you who doesn't know me. I'm an early intervention educator, so I work with children with special needs also. Apart from having a brother with autism, so in public, people with special needs have come towards me and approached me to like somehow ask for help.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, somehow they know like who to ask from help from.
Yes, correct.
It's like they see our mannerism also.
Maybe it's
Yeah,
the aura, I think.
the energy, right? The energy
Yes,
that you give off and then they feel it. Yeah.
perhaps.
My daughter gets really anxious when she's around people who are anxious about her. So she
Yeah,
absorbs
they
the
should feel.
energy, then she will
Yes,
start to react like
correct.
what is wrong. Like she can sense it. Yeah.
Project.
Yeah. So like talking about like asking for help, like you mentioned this yesterday, Aisha, I think it'd be nice to actually share because I feel like one of the reasons I did this talk is so that people who might not have experiences or encounters with disability, and specifically hey sayang, specifically ASD, what are some of the ways in which they can help, right? Help as the word for it, like what the one that you shared yesterday with me, like the case on in the train. It would be a
Yeah.
good example. Yeah.
I think you all have heard about the incident in the train where the teenager actually touched himself in public. Then he was actually accused or charged for sexual. Okay, so these are the things where public don't know how to approach the child, and he might look normal, you see, and people might not dare to approach him because there's no word autism on his forehead. Okay, so but asking for help, of course he will not be able to ask for help when he's ready at that situation. So as an individual or as a citizen, perhaps instead of telling him, hey, stop what you're doing, because for them the kind of instruction and the voice that you give to the child is can be very challenging for them. So perhaps you can approach and ask, do you need help? See? So, or you ask, are you okay? Because the word, are you okay, is very common to them. That is the common word used among kids with autism, between the teachers, the educators, and also the student. They will ask, are you okay? That is the first. So we wait for their reply. Okay, if they say no, then you ask, do you need help? You see? But that's why I say it's very difficult for the public to gauge their condition because they look like any other child. So, but when you know that their behavior is not something that inappropriate behavior, then I think as a citizen society, we have the right to ask about the condition and how to handle the situation more calmly. Yeah, in any situation, we have to be calm when we handle kids with autism. So our approach, our hand gesture, our tonation when we communicate with them is very important because that is the most sensitive issue when we handling kids with autism. Yeah. Anything else?
I also want to ask before we end your part. I also want to ask about what is your like, how do you feel like play is important when it comes
Oh,
to,
okay.
yes. Fine. So,
Okay, I incorporate play in my program. Okay, and before COVID hit us, every Tuesday and Thursday, I'll bring my students over to bounce at Senior Leisure, the trampoline park.
oh,
Yeah, so I mean the owner is also very kind, so they allow us to utilize the room. So I do conduct sandwich activities. We are there for 2 hours. So the moment they come in, they will have 15 minutes of trampoline session. Then they have to go back to the room and start with their academic.
okay.
Yeah, so we have academic also. Then after that, half an hour of academic. Then another 15 minutes at the trampoline.
Okay.
Yeah. So when they are at the trampoline, we have to be there with them. Because when they jump at the trampoline, okay, they can have fun, all right, enjoy. Yeah. But that can be very stimulating for them too.
Yeah.
So at time when they jump, then they start clapping and they start dancing. Then you say, okay, let's stop. Back to the room. So when you work with them, you really have to gauge and look at their eyes and their body movement and their body language. Is it helping them or is it going to harm them?
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
So I think play is the best way for us to actually work with kids with autism. I bring them for karaoke. Previously, parents were upset with me. I said, "Why karaoke? I mean, you're exposing my child to karaoke." So I explain to them, okay, when they do karaoke, they love music, they love movement. So when they want to sing, there's a lot of things that they have to go through, right? Looking at the lyrics, then listening to the tempo, to the music, then the body movement, then they try to sing. So all this actually is help them to focus on the task and the eye tracking, because most of them dislike to look at the television and doing eye tracking, reading skills, you see. So this is one of the way we do to help these kids.
Okay. That's really interesting. I mean, who would want to pass off a karaoke session?
We can try.
Maybe I should bring Inaya. So. Yeah. Thank
You
so
start
much.
with birthday song.
Yeah. Oh, birthday song.
Yeah, you start with the simpler. They also have Twinkle Twinkle Little Star. So we
Okay.
start with nursery rhymes. Then you get their attention. Once they're used to it, then you listen.
Other song.
Yeah.
Okay. Interesting. Yeah, I will try that. Yeah. I believe play is very important, especially when it comes to therapy, because therapy can be so like intrusive. I feel like sometimes it's like just you get the child to do it without waiting for the child to be ready. But then with play, you get to do it when the child is already in the headspace of play. So they are not there. Yeah. So that's the best. I feel the most, the least violent way of
Violent?
yeah. Because therapy can be so violent.
You mean we are violent?
Yeah, so I really believe in the notion of play when it comes to to, I mean, like they're children also in the end, right?
Yes,
So
yeah.
when you go to a
Because play
classroom,
can be incorporated even into academic,
yeah,
and using Lego, stacking,
yeah,
counting, sorting
yeah,
of colors,
yeah,
numbers,
yeah,
all that. Yeah. So
yeah,
play is is yeah, it's huge. You
yeah,
just use your imagination to create
yeah,
all the different kinds of play.
yes, yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. Okay, thank you for sharing, Aisyah.
You're welcome.
Maybe we can move on to Rachel. Rachel, you like to share about what you do, yeah, and your relationship with ASD as well. Yeah.
Okay, can. Yeah, and if I forget to mention anything, just jump in and remind me, yeah. Before I begin, just wanted to say I completely agree. Play is super, super important. There's an element of like fun and exploration that comes with play, and it really encourages creativity. So I'm like all for like, introducing it into more academic settings. Yeah, so a bit about me. I am a PhD candidate at UC Berkeley and San Francisco State University. I'm doing my PhD in special education. Currently, I'm calling in from California.
Wow.
Yeah,
Hello, California.
no, it's like nighttime. I know it's afternoon for all of you, but it's like nighttime here and it's cold. I know it's warmer in Singapore. It's quite different here. Um, so I'm here writing out my dissertation. Yeah, and also I'm a sibling of a non-speaking person on the autism spectrum. So my brother is he's now a teenager, and yeah, he's non-speaking. He was diagnosed with autism when he was 2 years old. And it was really like, the challenges and the experiences that we had as a family that made me kind of more curious and led me eventually to research. Yeah. So, in terms of my research, I basically study video data. I collect video data of people interacting with each other. So I've collected years and years of data of non-speaking individuals on the autism spectrum, like interacting with family members, with therapists, with teachers. And then what I do later is I go like I look for communication and movement patterns in the data, and use that as a basis for understanding what the communicative competencies are for this population. So that's kind of research that I do. I also design learning environments that allow people to interact and move in new ways. And yeah, this is something that I started developing here during my PhD. Yeah. So I guess something that maybe, research is kind of, I do all kinds of, it's quite complicated to kind of put everything in a nutshell. But maybe a good starting point is to maybe think about speech. So I think a lot about speech in my work because speech is the dominant communicative modality. I mean, we are all speaking with each other right now, and we are engaging in verbal conversation. And so I think a lot about how people who are non-speaking, such as the population that I study, often have to accommodate to and are expected to talk. So they have to accommodate to the dialogic system, right? And we can see this in the way that we teach these individuals. Right? We even give them devices that have voice output. So we always, make the child accommodate to our dominant verbal system. Yeah, so what this does is that it really places the non-speaking individual in a position of interactional asymmetry, where they always have to be the ones accommodating, or they're always the ones expected to accommodate. So in my research, I've tried to flip it. And I think instead, like, how can we as, as researchers and as like, parents, siblings, etc., who are speaking, how can we instead accommodate to the communicative modalities of these individuals? So yeah, so like what can they do? And let's start from there. Let's start from their abilities and what comes naturally to them. So, instead of changing the student, which I think is what a lot of education does, right? We think a lot about how to change the student. I think instead about how can we create like a social and material environment that can best allow them to do what they are good at. Yeah. So this is the approach that I take in terms of my work. Stimming is a big part of my research. Stimming is one of the two major, now there's more, but was one of the major diagnostic criteria for autism, right?
Yeah.
So it's listed in the DSM as like repetitive behaviors, and under this category would be like routine behavior, would also be echolalia, like verbal repetition. And then of course we have the stims, right? Like tapping, rocking, flapping, and that rich diversity of behaviors that we find there. But what's really interesting is this concept of like repetition. So if you really think about it, right, like all of us produce repetitive behavior all the time. Like I always like fidget and twirl my pen, drove my teachers nuts when I was a kid, you know? Or like underneath my desk right now, I'm like shaking my legs. You just can't see it. Yeah, we're always producing, you know, like repetitive behaviors in some way. And repetition is also like a big part of joint action. So if people want to engage in music together, right, they want to come in together, like very often musicians would be like 1, 2, yeah, and they're like everyone will synchronize together. So and in dragon boating, right, hoo ha, right? Then you fall into like a rhythm with each other. Yeah, and so it's very interesting that like we see like repetition and rhythm being used in everyday life, but it's somehow like associated. Yeah, it's like not acceptable with this population. It made me kind of like, hey, you know? Yeah. And autobiographies of autistic individuals, like autistic teens and adults, they've actually talked about how fun it is to stim. There's like they stim for self-soothing purposes, but also to express themselves, and they even like to stim with other people and interact with them. So I started to see stimming as a valuable resource, which actually fed very heavily into my dissertation. So yeah, this year I actually came back to Singapore for a few months, and I collected data with 10 families of non-speaking children on the autism spectrum. So what I did was in my PhD, I've been designing this kind of interactive technology. It's a mat that maps touch to sound. So basically, two people can like stand on the mat and touch hands, and then music comes out, and the music changes according to how they touch each other. And what I've been doing is, if you think about this mat situation, it's a situation of intellectual symmetry, right? Where both the speaking individual and the non-speaking individual communicate through touch and sound. So basically, during my data collection, I invited parents and their kids onto the mat, and basically the parents joined in their children's stimming, and they were like stimming and making music on the mat together. And they were like bringing in all kinds of objects. You know, we talked about stimming objects, right? Yeah, they brought in all the stimming objects onto the mat, all the rattles, all the spoons and the chopsticks, and yeah, it was just a very, very like fun and enriching experience for me, even as a researcher. Yeah, so I don't know what else to share.
I'm just wondering, like, because you mentioned like for like we always rely, as in we always somehow like expect the dominant language to be practiced, right? But when you see the videos of all these families, do you see like a kind of like more balanced way of communicating with each other? And do you also feel like stimming is a form of communication? And if you do, how is it a form of communication? Yeah.
Okay, so there's two questions. The first question is about like whether there's a difference between like how kids say, for example, accommodate versus not accommodate, right? Like on the mat, right? So regarding that, yeah, I conducted another study where I just collected naturally occurring data from these 4 families, right? And what I did was I studied the verbal interactions that these non-speaking individuals have with their parents. I say non-speaking, but they can speak one word at a time, right? So very often these children are like that, right? So what I found was that they can actually participate in very complex interaction. I ended up writing a research paper. It's actually going to be published. It's in press in a journal right now. But
like complex conversations, how? Like maybe give like an example. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, let me try not to get into the weeds, but like this research thing, right? It's so hard to summarize, man. So basically what I found, right, was that these individuals, like these children, they participate in these repetitive sequences with their parents. But it's like you can't just study the child's like verbal utterance. You have to look at what they do with their parents in order to understand the child's competency. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Yeah, and there were all these like repetitions, like very interesting, where the child would be like, the parent would say like 1 and then 2 and then 2, 3, 3, and then blow, and they blow a balloon or something. So they will have a verbal sequence that hits towards a goal. And then like, yeah, what was interesting was like sometimes the child didn't want to do what the parent wanted to do. So like what they ended up doing was they would use this verbal repetition but substitute the parts inside and change the direction of the interaction. I don't know how to explain it.
Just to indicate it's a no, right? So instead of going 1, 1, 2, 2, 3, 3 blow, they resist by going like a different way. Am I right?
Yes, exactly.
Okay.
And then the interaction goes in a different direction. And sometimes the parent don't know, like yeah, sometimes they just like blah blah, and it's just like, oh, and then it ends up going in a different direction. But actually the parent wanted it to go in a different direction. Yeah. So I was starting to see all these like, wow, very rich kind of interactions and abilities coming from the part of the child. Yeah. So the child can accommodate.
Utterance only, right? Even with that
Yeah,
one
like
utterance only, yeah.
despite only being able to produce one utterance, the child is able to, use different resources from around them in order to construct very elaborate interactions. Yeah. So I'm consistently seeing this in my data. Yeah. Despite the interactional asymmetry. Then you had a second question, right?
Second question is, how is teaming part of this? And no, how is teaming a form of communication? Do you believe that teaming is a form of communication, and how so? Yeah.
Okay. I believe that's not really believe, but I think my data is showing that stimming can sometimes be communicative. It's not always communicative. But when the person is stimming, they're always aware of the social circumstances, right? And especially since like very often people try to take stimming objects away. I've seen, in classrooms. And I find that the children are actually very aware of like, as they're stimming, they're like always monitoring things around them. I do think it can sometimes be communicative, but that it can happen gradually. Okay, let me try to explain. Like, if we take a step back from stimming and think about like what communication is, right? We very often think of communication in terms of speech because that's what we are used to. But even while using speech, we are doing many things with our bodies. Like I'm doing things with my hands right now. I'm producing gesture. And as I'm talking, everyone's like, you're nodding at me to show that you're listening to me. I mean, this is also communication, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
And it's non-verbal communication.
We are all always doing nonverbal communication. And so I think if we start to see all communication as verbal, non-verbal, and just embrace, diverse ways of communicating, then stimming becomes part of that too. And stimming becomes communicative. Yeah. It becomes communicative if it's responded to as communicative as well, right? because it takes more than one person.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
Don't know if I went into the weeds too much, but hopefully.
Thanks so much for sharing. Do you have any questions for the both of them?
Not at the moment.
Not at the moment.
Maybe we can
Okay, we're
open
actually
the floor.
opening the floor for questions. Is that right? Radha, you had a question, right?
Yes.
So we have like one guest, as in one.
Okay.
Yes, I've been eavesdropping on the other side of
Ooh.
yes. My question is about steaming. I've noticed that it's to do with the smells, with the towels that was hanging as part of the exhibits. I'm just wondering, is it necessarily always to do with the senses? Is it associated with senses? Steaming to heighten the senses. I mean, when I was in teaching before, I've had children who like the certain sound. They will keep or cutting the scissors. They just repeat. They like to do that a lot. So I don't know if it's a tactile thing or they rub themselves against the carpet. And then there's those kind. So it seems to be. I'm just connecting the dots. I'm not sure if there's more to it or it's just
Does
Okay.
Rachel want to respond to that?
You want to go ahead first?
No, Risha, go ahead.
Okay. Thank you for your question. I think so. Stimming has actually been described as a sensory experience by individuals on the autism spectrum. So, like the very definition, the etymology of like stimming, right? Self-stimulatory behavior. It indicates that it's probably a sensory kind of sensory experience. It provides a sensory experience. I do think just reading through all these, I've read through a lot of personal accounts of people describing their stims, and they always describe it in terms of this like very rich connection and engagement with the environment and with other people. Yeah, and they might not mention the word sensory, but there is something about this like deep connection that is deeply sensory. Yeah. So if we, I think there was mention of like all these different ways of stimming, tactile, rubbing, and like sometimes it's visual. I know a lot of people like to look at GIFs, and like
Then even now, like things with like fidget spinner, and the recent one is the popping thing that kids do.
Yeah, I personally like it myself.
Like you're popping like the.
Yeah, but why do you like it?
the bubble wrap.
Yeah.
It feels so good,
You feel good, isn't it?
Yeah.
Why do you feel good when you play the pop?
It's like it's hard to describe it, but there is an aesthetic experience to it that I don't know how to describe.
Yeah. When you see something,
yes,
or the feeling of like,
yeah.
and then
At
you
time,
see it again.
yes, correct. At time, it can keep them calm. See the texture, the textile of it when they press. Okay, sometimes there's sound. Okay, for those who are low functioning, to be able to press it down is an achievement. So they enjoy doing it. Because for these kids, able to do something little is a big achievement for them. You see? So tactile, sensory, stimming is all linked together. You see? Why do you think that they need the towel to smell? You see? At times the towel have a smell which is sensory. So when they smell, it goes directly to the brain. It can keep them calm. So it can be a calming effect for them. It makes them feel safe. That's why for them to feel safe is they need something that is very near and dear to them. Yeah. So all these like sound, they like the sound. Why do they like the sound? Do we know why they like the sound? We don't know. But they keep making the same sound again and again and again. So it make them comfortable. You see, make them calm. Yeah, make them safe. But we also have to monitor that it will not go beyond, like I mentioned earlier. Yeah.
I think, you know, as you're speaking, I'm reminded of this like paper that I read. So this paper was written by two scholars who are also on the autism spectrum, and they presented this idea of sensory periodization. Very cheap, okay, I understand. But what it really means, right, is that when you're a baby, right, you explore the world. Like think of kids putting things in their mouth, right? Then you reach a certain point where maybe the kid starts to lick things that are unclean, like maybe the floor or like, and then they're like, hey, don't do that, you know, like stop doing that. So basically, children gradually kind of they develop into a way of interacting with the world that is not sensory seeking. But everybody begins by exploring the world in a sensory way. Yeah. And if we and sometimes I think about it like, oh, you know, like to go through school, I've had to sit in a desk, right? Cannot move very much, cannot fidget.
Line, must be
Yeah, straight line.
Yeah, must be contained. Yeah.
Yeah, and my gosh, like the rich sensory experiences that I didn't have because of that, you know? Yeah. So anyway, like yeah.
Sorry, method.
Like, I actually like imagining like a world where it goes back to that kind of experiencing, like everything also we smell it, we rub it against ourselves, or we it's probably a different way of perceiving or interacting with the world.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Well, I think sometimes as an adult, I have a little bit more cash. So recently bought myself some very nice Lush towels and I was smelling it, you know? So I guess I'm bringing it back into my life in small ways.
I think we all have that, right?
Yeah. Because it bypasses the cognitive, you know, it's more
bodily,
yes,
it's
the
a
body
bodily
is the
thing.
one that says. It's
a
not your
bodily
brain
thing,
telling you, oh, this is interesting read or this is interesting music. You know, nothing to do, no processing. Yeah.
So what for those of you who didn't get to catch what Radha said just now, so when you steam, you feel immediately comforted by the sensory experiences, and it immediately like it bypasses your
yes,
cognitive
cognitive,
aspect
Yes.
in the brain, so you don't really have to process so much when you're comforted. Yeah.
Like we can explain also why we like this, because it's something bodily rather than up here, right? In that essence, yeah.
No, I
Releasing
I
that
think
energy, you know.
Yeah, Rachel.
yeah, I think it's important to recognize though that it's not just for self-soothing and calming purposes. Like the literature has shown that it does have non-self-soothing purposes too. Like it can get people excited too, right? Or like it's for interaction and yeah, one of my participants really likes to tap. So I studied his tapping stims, and I found out that he only tapped certain parts of certain items in certain parts of his home. And I became very curious about it. So I started to tap in the same way that he did at these parts of his home. And I realized that he was producing sound in the most resonant parts of his house. Right, where it was like very reverb, like a lot of
echoey parts.
yeah.
Okay.
And he was tapping the center of the box that produced the loudest sound. And to me, that's not really a self-soothing kind of function, right? That, to me, that's more like exploring and like
also a response, right?
responding.
It's a response kind of action. Yeah.
Yeah.
Once you do that, you get a kind of response, right? Like one of the things that Inaya actually likes to do. I like the sound.
Ooh.
Oh, yeah. So
This
she's
is
going
like
to get
really
a chin.
loud. I'm so sorry for those who are on their phone. So she likes to get us to.
Nice. Wow.
Every night, so it's a tin that we will spin, and it's always a certain spot and a certain tilt that will produce this like grung, 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 grung. So, and she would just like go to the over the tin, and there will be a light source from our lamp, ceiling lamp that will shine on this. So she will just like do this over it. And that's
Oh
how
my
she sleeps.
gosh.
Yeah, before she sleeps. So that's how she expels most of her energy, you know. So she will just spin around the sound. So it's almost like she's dancing with this thing. Yeah.
Oh,
Yeah, and it's only because of the resonance. Like other things won't do it for her. Yeah, yeah. It has to be like this bend, weirdly shaped, landing in a strange way. Yeah, yeah.
and is it this particular box or is it like
So there's
tin?
two. I have one here now, and she's looking for it now. Actually, like every night she's just like, "Where's my other tin?" But she also has another one that she likes to use more. So this is like the second
Wow.
one. Then she will bring both to me, and I will have to ask her which one do you want, and then she will. Yeah, then we take turns. Yeah, but never together. Yeah. It's like I can't talk to these things at the same time. It has to be separately, you know? Yeah, yeah.
Mm.
Yeah, private comment one on one. Yeah. Yeah.
And I love that she positions it such that it reflects light as well.
Yeah.
It's like
So she has her favorite spot, and then she will just like bounce with it. Like Jana saw it before.
Yeah, I see that too, right? They like the sensation.
Yeah.
Because the light comes.
Yeah, it's like
Yes.
a response thing. I feel, yeah, like interact, like what you mentioned also, right? The communicating as well, or connection. Yeah, connection. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah,
But she does that only before she goes to bed?
mostly that's where it peaks. So she will request. We call it her request. She will just bring it over, hand it to us, and then we will spin it.
Maybe that's a lullaby before she goes to bed.
A very proud
I need to
lullaby.
say good night, everybody, and I need that light.
My neighbors have been very kind. My neighbors downstairs. Because it's really katong, 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 katong every day. Yeah.
You can imagine neighbors who do not understand. Why are you being in the middle of the night?
I just give them butter cookies. Say thank you. Yeah. Yeah. Okay. Do you have anything to add on this?
I mean, like apart from the objects that we have exhibited here and the photographs that we see here, like I think the most crucial stimming action that my brother does is the verbal stimming. So more like vocalizing. Yeah. So he does a lot of g g g g g g. He makes all these sounds like g g g or like
Yeah,
like that.
we hear it. Yeah.
We have a video installation here that showcases how he vocalizes when when he's stimming. So that's how he like, self-soothe, and that's also how he communicates with us. Yeah. Because he is also non-verbal, he uses the vocal stimming or vocalizing a lot to communicate with us. Yeah. And as a form of communication also, uh, when he's angry or when he's trying to sleep, or when he's just bored, yeah, he vocalizes a lot. Yeah.
Okay. Have you even tried to imitate the same sound he makes?
Yes, of course.
So how does he react to you? To the sound?
Usually,
Do the same pitch, same tonation?
same intonation. Yeah, so he only realizes that I was trying to imitate his vocalizing only after a few minutes of me doing that.
Okay.
And after a while, he when he realizes that I'm doing that and doing the same kind of vocalization, then he looks at me, give me that really intense eye contact. And sometimes he will smile, sometimes he will push me away. Sometimes he just wants his voice to be heard, not mine.
I don't want. Stop it.
See, that is also a form of communication. You
Yeah.
see, when he push you away, maybe he wants his own space.
Yes.
I say, okay, you're very annoying. Please leave me alone. Okay. So if another way, when he smile at you, perhaps he gets your attention. That's what he wants. Say when he smile, then you imitate and he smiles. Perhaps you can move forward and ask, what do you want, Muhammad?
Yeah.
Next. Yeah. So from there, he will understand that you understand him. So at that area also is a form of communication. You
Yeah.
see, where you say it's stimming, but perhaps he wants to communicate in a different way. Yeah, maybe when he make the sound, you can listen to the sound. Is it the tonation, or is it very soft, very soothing, or is it very harsh? So from there, you know, okay, he's feeling comfortable, he's feeling calm, or he's feeling upset,
Yeah.
or yeah, he's feeling bored. So you have to do that research because you're with him every day. So you have to listen to the tone. Okay, today he's in a good mood. He's very calm. Yeah. So from the sound, the vocalization, everything, his body language, I'm sure you'll be able to gauge what is his mood for the day.
Yes, definitely.
Yeah. I still remember when we were sharing, like having that conversation, you were saying that Mama will pick up one word, like the Klebang story, right? And then you would just say the word, the
Yeah.
bibit, bibit.
Yeah.
Yeah. And then,
So
yeah.
yeah. So growing up, Muhammad used to as in during that window period when he started to pick up a lot of words from his environment. This only happened like during his early years, before he went to school, like during his early intervention years. He picked up like single words that he heard from his family or his environment. So one of the one of the most notable word that he picked up was klebang. So klebang is actually the name of the city in Malacca. We were on a road trip. We were on a road trip to around Malacca, and someone was saying, "Oh, let's go to Klebang today. The beach. I heard the beach was quite nice." And then after a while, then we heard him say, "Klebang, klebang, 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 klebang."
Oh my gosh.
It was so funny, and it lasted throughout the whole trip. Yeah.
And he said it with that speed. Like,
Yes. With that,
wow.
go bang, go bang, go bang, go bang.
The ring to it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
He likes the sound.
I like the sound
Interesting.
of the
Wow.
Yeah.
He was so creative, he completely transformed the word. Wow.
And then you also mentioned that word could be one thing, but it means a lot of things for you, right? Because you're so
Yeah.
familiar with it. Yeah.
It all depends on the tone of it. Yeah.
And then, as after a while, you can tell from the tone, right? Like what what it means, right? Or like what it means for
Yeah.
Muhammad. Yeah.
Yes. Because he's non-verbal, so we depend a lot on the intonation and his facial expression when he said it, when he vocalized the words. Yeah.
There's a very famous study on a person with aphasia, and he only had 3 words. His 3 words were yes, no, and. Just those 3 words. And he was, and that's it. And through changing the intonation and through gestures, he was able to tell very elaborate stories. And just using resources around him and just changing. Yeah. So very, like, as you were speaking, it just reminded me of this, research paper. Yeah.
So interesting.
Yeah, like it's after a while, like, I guess as family members too, like my brother, he's the one who likes to tap. I have more than one participant who likes to tap, but he's one of them. Yeah, he also likes to make these vocalizations, but it really changes. Like he make it for a while, then he stop, then he make another for a while, then he stop, right? Like ooh wah, ooh wah. It's like ooh wah, ooh.
That kind of reminds me of the Coel bird. Exactly.
The
That's true.
Morning.
And then I remember there was one time, like from Uwa, he said quiet. So with the same intonation, but he said it as quiet. So it's just like, quiet, quiet. Everyone was just like, MRT and everything, you know?
It's like, yeah, because the words mean something to us, but it means something like Inaya right now, she likes the word bicycle because we've been cycling. So everything is bicycle, but then she will say bicycle, which is let's go. Or she will say, so it will change, but it will change in the way it's said, but you can still hear the word bicycle. So everything is bicycle, 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 but bus go, bus go.
Very mentally
Yeah. Because I remember the neuro saying that the words might already form in the brain, but when they're trying to say it out, it cannot come out, so it comes out as sounds. Yeah. Okay, we already hit the 1 hour.
Wow. Okay.
Thank you for staying throughout the entire talk and sharing with us. Both of you, Aisyah and Rachel, thank you so much. I enjoyed the sharing from the both of you so much. So the show will still run until Monday. Yes, please drop by Monday until what time do you open it?
Until 5 p.m.
5 p.m. So if you haven't dropped by, we're at Gilman Barracks, Block 47. Yeah, it's a very short show, so do drop by if you can. Yeah. So we're going to end the meeting now. Thank you so much. I'm going to stop recording. Okay.
The square.